I think that his brand has never been more toxic. I don't think it changes.
Instagram on TV
Yes.
is what I thought.
2014 Instagram.
What happens when they really do run out of money?
There will be days when she's not feeling as good as other days, but she turns up with a smile on her face, and it just adds that, hearing her talk about that, it just adds that layer when you see her out then on display.
Welcome to Royal Exclusive, where this week the Princess of Wales and her tiara were a welcome sight at Windsor Castle's French state visit, which acted as a dummy run for Donald Trump's arrival in September. Prince Andrew breathed a sigh of relief after the FBI ends their investigation into his Epstein links. And we ask, are Harry and Meghan really running out of money? Joining me in the studio today is news.com.au royal reporter Bronte Coy and royal correspondent at 5 News, Simon Vigar. Now, guys, we don't often hear a lot from Royal Lodge these days. Andrew is very, very quiet, but I imagine this week, if you were in earshot of those great big gates, we may have heard a little bit of a celebration, or if Andrew did drink, a little bit of popping of corks, because the FBI, as we pointed out there, are saying that they're not going to investigate Andrew anymore. Simon, we followed this case for years now. What do you think this means for Andrew? Do you think he's happy?
Well, you're right. We don't hear anything from Royal Lodge, really. I always thought it was a long shot that the FBI were even going to get close to going further on this, and it turns out that they're not. I mean, it's worth pointing out straight at the start, he wasn't ever arrested, let alone charged, or was in any part of any criminal investigation in the United States. A few years back, there was talk of, a possible hearing at Westminster Magistrates or something by a video link, but that never happened. And of course, he has always denied knowing about anything that happened with Epstein, let alone anything else. So it's not a huge surprise to me. To answer your question, yes, I'm sure he will be very happy that is now the case, and maybe he will be, using a few more air miles, but I doubt he's going to be going to the United States.
Well, this has been hanging over his head, to say, maybe for 5 or 6 years now. It was shortly after his Newsnight interview in 2019 where he said, I would cooperate with the US authorities. They then said he's given us zero cooperation. As you pointed out, I think it was a mutual legal assistance application to ask the government for Andrew to interview Andrew. After all this time, he's not doing much at Royal Lodge, is he, Bronte? I mean, this means that maybe his life could come back to normal?
No, I mean, to be honest with you, of course, technically, yes, it will be a relief for him. Maybe there was a bottle of champagne popped, but in the grand scheme of things, I don't think this changes very much. The Court of Public Opinion ruled years ago, and that was also related to things like, as you've pointed out, of course, he has denied any allegations of wrongdoing all the way through, but he settled that case with Virginia Giuffre, in which he did also deny any allegations of wrongdoing in that, but he settled the case. There was that disastrous Newsnight interview where his response to when it was put to him about his ties to Jeffrey Epstein, who had these sickening, horrendous crimes, people did not respond well to his position or his lack of accountability over their friendship even. So there's a lot of things that have happened over the last 5 or 6 years, and when it comes to his public life or any return to normalcy, and by that I mean his royal life prior to all of this, I don't see that it's going to make any big difference. I don't see that this changes anything at all. People have absolutely no appetite to see him back doing public duties, and I don't think it helps the royal family if he is aligned with them.
I think, look, any idea that he's suddenly going to appear at, French state banquets and stuff like that's not going to happen. He's banished from royal duty, but it means, my understanding is that he was very nervous about going abroad recent years, particularly to America, as you pointed out, Simon, because of, it could be a tap on the shoulder, or someone, could grab him in a different country or serve a writ on him. This does mean that he could leave Royal Lodge for the first time in years, because he's just been stuck there, too scared to basically leave in case anyone sees him.
It is a crushing blow to him that he's had to step back, been forced to step back from royal duties, which stems from the Newsnight interview, of course, and then the settlement of the civil case. Perhaps he's the only person who thinks there's a way back, but I don't think King Charles or Prince William think there's a way back for him. And the only time we see him is at family events like the Easter service, when he's out there, front and centre and smiling, but he's not doing royal duties.
And in terms of, as well, the travel that you mentioned, I think we could now see more of that from him. As you mentioned, he doesn't have a lot else going on. And we've also seen him attempt to start some entrepreneurial work, or that he's trying to launch these businesses. And for example, the contacts that he was selling through, that he developed through the Pitch at Palace initiative, I think we'll probably see a bit more of that. That will probably see him travel to meet up with potential investors and other businesses he might work with. But again, in the grand scheme, I think that his brand has never been more toxic. I don't think it changes. I don't think people will be rushing to align themselves with him, even outside of royal duties.
The key always is to follow the money, isn't it, in every story? And the money is still a mystery with Prince Andrew to a great extent. We know that there are books on the way which may well lift the lid on that. But fundamentally, the link to Epstein was always about money. That was why they were friends for so long. That's why he went back to end the friendship. But that's the root of it.
It's interesting that we focus on Prince Andrew. Right, this is we're in the UK, this is royal exclusive, we talk about the royal family. So when we talk about Epstein, we focus on Prince Andrew. But the FBI the leaked memo says that they're not going to investigate anybody. Andrew has taken everything from this investigation. He has lost everything from his links to Epstein. And maybe I'll get myself in trouble if I go too far on this line, maybe with our viewers. But he has lost an awful lot, and there are lots of other people that that haven't. That the FBI could have investigated. There's only Ghislaine Maxwell that's actually been jailed. I'm just saying that, not defending Andrew, but just pointing out that it is rather odd that they're not investigating.
But he was such a high-profile, friend of Jeffrey Epstein's. There were those photos, as you mentioned, when he went to break up their friendship in Central Park, and all the photos of them, partying together over the years. I mean, it's just by the fact that he is so close to the throne, and the fact that he is a member of the royal family, it just is part and parcel that the ties that you have and the way that you present yourself in public life is going to have more scrutiny than others, and that's why there's been so much interest in his role in it all. And also, again, going back to that Newsnight interview, the way he spoke about it all, I think that reinvigorated interest in it all as well, because it was such a baffling display.
Yeah.
He showed a lack of class.
Exactly.
But his line in that interview was, if I'm guilty of anything, it's of being too loyal to a friend. That's his line. And certainly Sarah, Duchess of Ferguson, the people who are friends with Prince Andrew feel he has been absolutely hung out to dry with no actual evidence. Yes, there's a civil case, there's the civil settlement, but there's never been a criminal case against him. And it looks like that's, the thin prospect of that is now gone.
Should he say anything, Simon? Should he come out with a statement or some kind of...
He thought the last interview was a success. So I think probably no. But, you could argue from the other point, what's he got to lose?
Yeah.
That is a fair point. But you're absolutely right. After that last interview, surely there would be no publicist or manager or advisor in the world that would suggest that he should get back in front of a camera and speak to all of these issues.
Yeah. But apparently he ignored the publicist last time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And went ahead with it.
Ultimately, be a fly on the wall this week in Royal Lodge. It really would be interesting to see how he's feeling. But as I say, we never hear from him anymore. Rarely see him. Let's wait and see. We didn't see Andrew, obviously, at the French state visit. Windsor Castle, so I was down there all day, and Windsor looks spectacular, by the way, because it's moved from Windsor to Buckingham Palace, because Buckingham Palace, they've closed the staterooms because part of this £369 million renovation. Yeah. It was a beautiful setting, Simon, Windsor Castle, and I thought the royals looked great. The highlight maybe was the King's address. It was trailed earlier. We were thinking it was going to be maybe talking about the small boats crisis, the cross-channel summit with the French president that's coming up. What did you make of the King's words?
Well, the speeches both in Paris 2 years ago and the speeches now in Windsor and London have been very good. So the King was talking in royal diplomatic language. He was talking about how no fortress can save us, how it's a world without borders, and so he's alluding to the issues that we all know are being spoken about between Macron and Starmer now, small boats being one of them, and talking about unity, a shared purpose. Obviously with all the wars that are happening at the moment, the security in Europe. He was referring to that. But as far as the speeches go, Macron's speech and the King's speech went down really well, and especially when they're doing a bit of French, a bit of English, franglais. Yeah.
There was a bit of a bromance going on there, because we were in France, and they look like they get on very well.
Yeah, they really do. And Macron is very tactile, as we know, and and so's the King. I mean, you would never have seen that happening with the late Queen, but they clearly get on very well.
How do you think that went down? There was lots of kissing on hands. I lost count the amount of times Macron had his hand on William's elbow, or he had his hand on the King's back. You point out that wouldn't happen with the late Queen.
No.
How welcome do you think this is to the royal family to have this behaviour?
We do always watch the body language in these scenarios, and I've got to say, it was warm. It was just very, very warm, and I think that it does appear that you've used the word bromance, but it does appear there's a very friendly relationship here, and I think they do have, the King and the President have a lot of shared interests, and the King touched on that in his speech about the climate issues. But also, I love that he made some jokes throughout that speech. I just thought it was very warm, and it was actually quite lighthearted for the King. And as you say, he's going between French and English, and he made the joke about the English sparkling wine and how that wouldn't be well received in France, a couple of generations ago. Yeah, it just seemed like a really wonderful display again of the soft power, but also of the relationship between these two men who are clearly here on good terms and seemed quite excited to be hanging out, to be honest.
There's an Australian link here because 30 years ago there was outrage, or confected outrage, when Paul Keating, the then Prime Minister, placed his hand on the back of Elizabeth II, guiding her somewhere, and there was a big row about that. But now, nobody would bat an eyelid at any of that. But I love Macron's line in his speech at Parliament where he said, a very charming speech, and he said, "We love monarchy, especially when it's not in our country."
I loved that too. They were both quite funny speeches in that way. Again, it had the elements. There's a lot of serious issues being discussed, exactly as you said, with the global crises at the moment, and they're discussing their migration, But yeah, to have those lighter moments in there, I just found it an incredibly charming display from both of them.
It was. There was a mix, wasn't there, between seriousness and jokes, and it was timed quite well. Simon, do you think you've listened to a lot of speeches from Queen Elizabeth II, and state visits by the King? He's more political in many ways, or do you think he's more political in many ways, or he touches on more political issues? He's more confident to use words like irregular migration, whereas the late Queen may not have got into those words.
Yeah, I mean, I think the late Queen did occasionally touch on those topics, but it was obviously all of these speeches are written and then approved by the ministers, the government ministers. So there are various drafts going on. He is. Yes, to answer your question, he is edging more towards that, but he knows there is a line, there is a wall there that he can't go over. Whereas when he was Prince of Wales, in terms of the environment or architecture or opportunities for young people. I mean, actually, he's still very hot on that. But he can't be quite as actively speaking to ministers as he was back then. But he clearly wants to do it his own way. And he wants, you can't not talk about or allude to the small boats situation when you have the President of France there in Windsor.
There were some real diplomatic hoops being jumped through, if I'm going to strangle an analogy there. But it does... In the future, we've got Donald Trump coming. And that's going to be, this times 10. It felt like a bit of a dummy run because it's going to be in Windsor. We don't know if carriages will be there when Trump's there. It might not, for security reasons, we might not. But do you think Charles, the King, is maybe having sleepless nights worried about his speech to Trump, what he can leave in, what he can't, what he must leave out? Because he's not going to be talking about climate change to Donald Trump. There's almost like a practice run for when he sits down at the state banquet with Trump.
I'm sure the King is intensely relaxed about the speech. I'm sure there'll be a couple of pointed references to things that he wants to speak about there. Maybe migration will be in there, and an allusion to walls or whatever. I don't think he really cares that much about that. It'll be diplomatically couched, and he'll do it his way.
It'll be a similar bromance?
No.
I think it's a good base, as you just mentioned. But the King is also he's really settled into this role as sort of I think is a global peacemaker at the moment. But he's been able to balance those very sensitive issues among we saw it in Canada earlier this year with the issues with the US and Canada, and I think he will be relaxed about it going in, only because already it's been well established that he and the US president, they have a good relationship. Mr. Trump really likes likes the royals and likes the king, and so it's not like they're starting off at a difficult base. I think that there will be, if they put on a great show, if they have all the pomp and ceremony and the pageantry we've seen, I think that will be really well received by the president, and I think that's really all that they'll be looking to do is just put on a really good show and show him that he's a very special and honoured guest. I think that's going to be the key element.
Yeah, that's the key thing, is that Donald Trump is a monarchist because his mum, a Scot, was an ardent monarchist. So, and the King and Trump definitely get on. But having two state visits in the space of a few weeks is strange. Definitely, Downing Street seems to have been pushing for this more than usual. So there's some controversy behind the scenes about how it's all been scheduled. But I think the King and Donald Trump will definitely get on. It may not be quite as tactile as what we've just seen.
There was one part just right at the end after Macron's speech. He was talking about, long live Great Britain and the UK, long live France, and long live this entente amicale, which is like upgrading entente cordiale to, a relationship of friendship. And right at the end, when he finished it, Charles actually clenched his fists, like almost in partial celebration.
Oh, wow.
I've never seen that kind of emotion from him. But it's also stressful as well, these trips. And we did, when we first saw the King, when he first emerged, we did have a bloodshot eye. How worried are we about that, Bronte?
No, I've actually done this before, although mine was because I have these enormous nails. But I've accidentally scratched my eye in my sleep before, and I had exactly the same thing. And it looks, sorry to the King, it does look horrific, but actually, they clear up in a couple of days. It's not a big deal.
They said it was a burst blood vessel the night before, but not connected to his treatment.
Yeah, so these things can happen. I think they're fairly common. They're quite painless too. It just looks quite painful. It's a dramatic look, but of course he had to be there yesterday. There was, he's not going to pull out of that. But yeah, the pictures, it was just unfortunate. I felt quite bad for him because the pictures are a little bit alarming when you first glance at it.
You were alarmed by seeing the King looking? He didn't look great. His eye didn't look great.
No, it looks horrible. But as you say, we're assured that it's nothing to do with his ongoing treatment for cancer, and it was just one of those things. I think the day one of the state visit obviously is the big royal day. I think it went really well. The weather helped. It helps when the sun is shining. And just going back to Trump, maybe they will have a carriage procession. I mean, it's a shorter route than would be in London for Buckingham Palace, but obviously that really will be up to the American Secret Service whether they want him in an open carriage like that.
On a slightly lighter note, I have to ask you, I just saw the pictures of the table that the state banquet where it was held, and I was told, I read that it was the biggest, is it the longest table in England? Did you see it up close?
Yeah, we had a little walk around before the guests came in. It's 50 metres long, it's mahogany, took a week to lay out all the candles. I think it was 137 candles.
How did it look?
It looks, it's brilliant. It actually looked better than Buckingham Palace. Don't tell Buckingham Palace that, but it looked better than the state dinners that you see in Buckingham Palace. 160 people, say, took a week to lay out. I was told, and I don't know if this was someone winding me up, but when they were showing us around, the press preview, that to clean a 50-metre table, they have to put on kind of special cleaning socks.
Oh, yeah.
Is this true?
They climb up on it, yes.
They climb up on it and they walk along to clean it, to make it all shiny. Because no table. I'm glad we've both been told that.
I've seen pictures of it. And they've also got lovely old-school wooden rulers measuring how all of the cutlery is precisely positioned.
We're getting all of those behind-the-scenes videos from the royals now. This is the one I want to see if they're watching. I would like to see the people with their funny socks up on the table doing the cleaning. That's an official request.
St George's Hall, I thought it was brilliant. It was medieval. There was knights. There was suits of armour and stuff like that, and it looked absolutely spectacular. It looked like something from from the Middle Ages. It was wonderful. But we were a couple of rooms away, watching it on TV. And we had to be very nervous that there was a big TV for all the press, but I was very worried that they might be able to hear the feedback on the TV because of the doors over. They were just round the corner and we were just in another room. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, so hopefully look forward to Donald Trump's visit.
Yes.
I tell you, it did look great though, the Princess of Wales.
Always.
Very welcome to see her. Now this was a red dress.
By Sarah Burton.
It was described to me as a crêpe silk. If that is a phrase.
Very good, Matt.
Yeah. So this is the same designer as her wedding dress. I bet you knew that. Sorry, I've jumped in. I'm certain you knew that. This is your area. You love it. And she was wearing that beautiful tiara that I love seeing Catherine and the tiara, the Queen Mary. It's the Lover's Knot tiara.
Yeah.
But also, we haven't seen her in a tiara since December 2023. But the last state banquet, I believe, was the month prior. So it's been quite some time, and it really is the most wonderful regal display when you see them all, walk out and they've got the white tie and the tiaras on. And she does add, she's a woman who does some amazing work. I love when we shine a light on that, but it just must be said, she really adds glamour. She really does. She turns up to these events and she looks spectacular.
And I love the small symbolic touches. Like earlier in the day, she was wearing Dior for the ceremonial welcome. But yeah, she looked great, and they were wearing, the ladies of the royal family were wearing the new royal order, the new family order, with a hand-painted portrait of the king. So she had the family order with Elizabeth, which she was wearing last night, but the new one is a hand-painted portrait of the king.
So that's the first time we've seen that?
I think it is, yeah. And Sophie and Camilla and others had it on as well. Yeah,
no, it was not say it's just a relief, but after everything that the Princess of Wales has been through lately, and then she didn't appear at Royal Ascot, we only got told a short time before the actual state banquet that confirmed that she would definitely be there. Is that the future? Is that what we have to expect now, Simon, as press and members of the public?
Yeah, I think so. And in fairness to Kensington Palace, they did say that at the very beginning. We're not going to announce stuff way in advance because there will be last-minute changes, there will be last-minute cancellations. Royal Ascot a few weeks ago was really hot. And I, completely get it that it may well have been that it was purely because of the temperature and, being outside for so long that was the decision. So they're not going to announce weeks in advance stuff that Catherine's doing. It'll be more the sort of last-minute stuff we've got used to in the last year or so. So if there is a cancellation, it's less of a big deal.
But she has warned us. She has said that, when she was at the hospital a couple of weeks ago, she has said that, her recovery for patients, it is quite difficult and give us patience.
Yeah, and temperature is relevant there. I mean, the temperature outside is relevant.
I did see, she looked, as we said, she looked fantastic, obviously, with her outfit yesterday, but also she looked relaxed and happy and healthy. But I've got to say, I do have that new sort of filter over it after hearing those comments she made last week when she talked about having to put on a brave face when you finished treatment and you're just having to get on with it on days that maybe you don't feel up to it and it's hard to get back into routine. And again, it just adds that level of compassion where there will be days when she's not feeling as good as other days, but she turns up with a smile on her face. And it just adds that, hearing her talk about that, it just adds that layer when you see her out then on display.
Are we guilty of assuming that this is easy? Then that we're assuming that you're just in a carriage and you're just walking in having dinner, you're sitting next to Emmanuel Macron and making polite conversation. Are we wrong to think to assume it's not a difficult?
Well, they make it look easy. This is the thing. The difficulty with being very good at your job is when you make something look easy, people expect that maybe it is. But we were at Trooping the Colour. We've been we were at Ascot. And, when you cover royal events, especially they're out there for a long time. You get such a better sense of the fact that these are long engagements. Often the temperature plays a role which you don't really pick up on through TV or photos. And there are other elements at play. And I do think that she does it, as all the royals, the senior royals do. They do their jobs with so much ease and they do look so relaxed and happy. She's walking around in stiletto heels for hours. And let me tell you, that's not easy.
It's easy to get it wrong.
Yeah.
And she doesn't put a foot wrong, and she knows how many cameras are pointing at her and how many people are looking at her. And I think we all know people who have in our families who are recovering from cancer, and the idea that they would then be on public display in front of millions of people with lots of cameras pointing at, we wouldn't want that happening to one of our relatives.
Absolutely.
If they were having a bad day, or even if they're having a good day. But that's what she's going through.
You pointed out earlier about the power of the king with soft power and getting on with Macron and delivering that speech and being very, very tactile. The Princess of Wales, Queen Camilla, Prince of Wales, they also had a vital job as well at this state visit. I mean, they were in the carriage. They met Brigitte and Emmanuel Macron at the airport. Maybe they'll do that for Trump, and then they took him to Windsor. I'm really interested to wonder what would be in that polite chit-chat. I know we have kind of lip readers trying to work out what they say, but they have to be on form the whole day with people like Macron's and when Trump comes along, don't they?
And they will have had briefings about exactly who's in the carriage with you and what they've done and what they're doing. And so, I think the royal family are probably world experts at this, of the small talk, and without it, because there's so often they're having to do it. And a lot of the time it's with people who are terrified of meeting them, it's sort of that grimace as they meet them, or grin. So they're really good at the small talk. Catherine, we've seen her time and time again. She puts people at their ease. So, I'm not saying it's the hardest job in the world. It's not, obviously. But you're on public show, and just that in itself is pretty tough, I would have thought.
It isn't the actual movements of it aren't that difficult, but as you say, if you set one foot wrong or any minor thing occurs, the world's eyes are on you, and it will be amplified. And
she was sat next to President Macron for the whole meal. What if she said something stupid? Because I would probably end up saying something stupid or embarrassing. And say, oh, why have I said that? What if she torpedoed the whole visit? That's what I mean. It's more than just wearing a dress and walking out and sitting in a carriage.
It's constantly staying on. Never being able to relax, I don't think, fully in a conversation like that. I don't think she's ever, and she's always at work. It's job. So you're sitting there and you're very focused on the things that you've been briefed on and what you should be talking about.
Now, they did get to have a lovely meal. It was I had sandwiches in the side room, but they had organic chicken, and they had an Entente Cordiale cocktail. Do you know about this cocktail? I'll tell you about this cocktail. It was a combination of French and British ingredients. So it was British gin and lemon curd with French pastis, apologies if I said that wrong, garnished with, now wait for this, it was garnished with dried French cornflowers and English roses. Guys, is this flower sprinkles?
Flower sprinkles? Who knew?
With the flower sprinkles at the state visit.
Meghan
Obviously.
is ever present. She's found a way into the state visit. Flower sprinkles are getting a huge moment at the moment, it seems. We're always talking about them because of Meghan's as ever. And
well, this week on Instagram, we have seen a lot of Meghan's flower sprinkles. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe she's put it on coffee. And very aptly, she's put it on a French toast on her As Ever website.
Right.
If she mentioned about something, this is putting flower sprinkles on your food and drink is a use of free will. What's going on here?
No, the coffee, honestly, I feel comfortable saying this, on behalf of all Australians, that's a crime. That is a crime. You cannot put flower sprinkles on a coffee. And also, why is it needed? I think look. Fine. If you want to have it on dishes, where maybe on a dessert and it makes it look a bit prettier. I know some cakes have flowers and all of that. Why would you want it on your drink? Imagine taking that sip and having gritty bits in your mouth. It's disgusting.
Yeah, it's going to stick to your lip as well.
Yes,
isn't it?
I just don't. Why?
Isn't it just like chocolate on a cappuccino? I can't believe we're talking like this. But tell me more about your flower sprinkles opinion.
No, it's not like chocolate sprinkles on your cappuccino. I mean, fair enough. If you want to put flowers on everything. Are there any flowers left? I mean, actually out in the wild. But I think flowers on your... I get a little bit on a cocktail. Did you have any of the cocktail, by the way?
No, we had water and sandwiches.
Okay, quite right. But if you want to... she does seem to have gone overboard on the flowers. From what I've seen from her cooking, it's pretty much on everything. Yeah. But each to their own, creating wonder in every moment.
Yeah. Well, she's ramped up. I lose count now. I don't have alerts for her as ever. Instagram stories and updates because it just comes thick and fast at the moment. Do you think it's working, Simon? Do you think this new career that she has out there as apparently a kind of food influencer in California?
Well, the Netflix numbers were reasonable, weren't they? I don't know how it's done overall, but when it was first released, I think it did okay. People watching it maybe out of curiosity. I didn't see that much cooking. It's not really a cooking show, is it? I mean, I saw biscuits and pancakes, and that was about it. But I lasted one episode. You've seen the whole lot. I
watched all of it. I did. I was doing some heavy lifting there, and I watched all of it. But as I've complained to Matt about on the show before, I was really hoping that it would be interesting. So I thought this is sort of her last hurrah, and I thought maybe she's spoken so much about this space in the past. It was very boring. It's very boring. That was the problem.
Instagram on TV.
Yes.
Is what I thought.
2014 Instagram as well.
That's 2014 Instagram.
Yeah. Outdated Instagram on TV. Very true.
But best of luck with it. I mean, the Netflix deal is still ongoing as far as I know, or is it running out?
Well, interesting to say about that because I read a story this week, I think it was in America, where they talked about there's a suggestion that Harry and Meghan could be running out of money because their Netflix deal will at some stage run out, although Netflix have signed up with Meghan for her cookery programme and her products. But there is a lot of talk that they could be a little bit short of cash. Do you think this is true, or do you think that As Ever and her cookery show will make Meghan the money that will sustain their lifestyle in California?
Well, obviously it is a California lifestyle, as you say. They've got the security costs as well. I mean, Harry and Meghan are not poor, so whether they've got income streams coming in, I simply don't know. But the Spotify thing has seemed to sort of stopped, as far as I know, and Netflix. My issue with Netflix is Harry has said there's stuff he's kept back that he hasn't put in the book, that he didn't put in the documentary, and he's never going to talk about it. If the Netflix deal is continuing, they're going to say, look, so much for Polo, behind the scenes at Polo and flower sprinkles. We actually want to know what else there is.
Because they have a young family and they've got decades ahead of them of needing to maintain this lifestyle. As you mentioned, it's a California lifestyle. They are by no means poor. I believe they got an inheritance from Harry's great-grandmother, the Queen Mother. We don't know what they got from the late Queen. I know that he had from Diana. He's discussed how he had money from Diana's estate. But their security costs, as you mentioned, I think it's like £2 million a year. Their mortgage would be high. These deals were big deals. The Netflix one, the Spotify one, which has been over, I think, for 2 years. And the new one that Meghan would be on with a much smaller streaming service, it wouldn't be anything like those numbers you'd have to assume that they had with Spotify. Harry has that role, I believe, still with BetterUp as their chief impact officer. I have absolutely no idea what that role would pay, mostly because I don't know what it means. But for all these reasons, I think that you are talking about huge overheads every year, and especially with staffing costs. And that has to be maintained.
They go through quite a lot of them.
Imagine the induction process. That all costs money when you keep hiring. So I think you are looking at a huge amount of money every year that they're needing to spend. And you would have to imagine that with the Netflix deal, wrapping up this year and probably being renegotiated, I can't imagine it will be anywhere near the same number that it was, because Netflix is not signing those sorts of deals anymore anyway. So yes, I think that you are looking at a scenario where maybe there will be more books. I don't know. You don't know what they'll do in the future.
Well, this is the point. Is that if true, they are running out of money. What happens when they really do run out of money? So, Simon, you touched on it. You were talking about they may have to sell more of their story or their lifestyle or tell their past and their secrets, or do they come back with a begging bowl, dear Dad, or dear brother, even, I need a bit of money?
We're seeing this from a British perspective, an Australian perspective as well, but seeing it from the UK. I mean, they do have a lot of loyal fans, as we know, especially in America. So I'm sure they'll be able to monetise stuff for a long time. They may well be watching this programme right now. And if they are, I mean, I'm
They're very
sincere.
very clever people.
I am sincere when I say I genuinely hope it works out.
Yeah.
I genuinely hope that they are able to, keep the lifestyle they want there and do the deals they want to do. I'm sure they don't care about what I think, but I hope it all works out. But I don't know how long you can keep stringing along some of those deals,
I completely agree with you as well, because as we've discussed in the past, what we wanted to see was them to branch away from the royal connection. Meghan has done that, whether you like her new products and her show or not. She has done that now. Hopefully that does work, and that is something we don't know yet, I think, financially, whether that's a big success. We know that the series has a season 2, but I believe that was already in the can. Then potentially will be a season 3. Who knows? But maybe that will grow into the empire she's hoping it will be, and that will fund them into the future. But I think that still remains to be seen.
You're totally right. I mean, Simon just touched on the loyal fan base, and I think I read this week that Meghan's had to give refunds due to high demand on some of her jams. So if we believe that it's totally sold out, they're having to offer refunds because they couldn't honour some of the purchases, because so many people, so many fans and followers have ended up buying all her jam and spreads.
And they may have done, which, by the way, they're very expensive. So, if there are people clamouring to buy it, good for her, I suppose, because that's because they want to be associated with her brand, because you can get a cheaper jam in many other places. But again, we don't know how many were released in that initial stock drop. So it's very hard to speculate on how many fans were trying to get them that are now getting refunds, or how many sold out, because we don't know what was in that product drop.
Buy shares in flower sprinkles. Or is it too late?
I think that's how they can save money now. Just cut back a little bit on the flower sprinkles. I think that's one of the areas.
Do you think when they're looking at the budgets, they're like going, we've spent this much on mortgage, this much... This much on
It has to
security.
be top-
Flower sprinkles.
It would have to be top 3. You're thinking if they're putting them on coffee, you've got mortgage, security, flower sprinkles, kids' education has to be below. Like, it has to be flower sprinkles up the top 3.
Oh, dear. Well, again, we talked about want to be a fly on the wall in Royal Lodge. I'd love to be a fly on the wall in Montecito.
We're going to have to cut the sprinkles. First world problem.
Save the sprinkles.
Just get another credit card, Harry. We'll chuck it all on another credit card. Phone at your brother and see if we can get some flower sprinkles
All
that were
great
used
ideas.
in Windsor Castle.
Goodness.
Yeah. Well, what a life. Right, we just got time for our quickfire questions.
Ooh.
OK, you take a deep breath.
Okay.
Right, what should have been on the state banquet food menu?
Oh, I was disappointed to not see some British staples. As someone who only moved here a year or so ago, I was trying to try all the local food. Scotch eggs, I think,
glorious.
a classic. Mushy peas with things. You want some real British classics in there. I was disappointed. It was all very posh. I think they would have really done well with a Scotch egg starter.
Or like a
call us
Greggs sausage roll or something like that. For a start.
I mean, let's keep a little level of...
They call us the
Eyebrow.
roast beef, so
Yeah.
roast beef, I would have thought. But I think it was a very good menu. I love the cocktail that you mentioned earlier on, and pastis is correct, by the way.
Is that? Oh, thank you very much. Raymond Blanc, apparently, a celebrity chef, was involved in setting out that menu.
right.
Just working with the royal household. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, he's been in the UK for years, so he's the perfect man for a franglais fusion.
Which country should Prince Andrew visit first?
Oh, every country in the world going like this. Probably somewhere remote. Maybe if he has to go away, probably just go somewhere as low-key as possible.
You don't think partying in Las Vegas and off to Faliraki?
Exactly the opposite of what I mean.
I don't think he's going to the States anytime soon. But there are rumours about the Middle East, aren't there, and property in the Middle East, so maybe to the desert.
I think those rumours won't go away either. The only time he's gone abroad was to Bahrain in the last 6 years. He's got a lot of friends out there, a lot of business interests, as you spoke earlier, in the Middle East and the Far East. That always just strikes me as the most sensible option. But, he likes the UK, wants to be close to his family, he's got grandchildren.
He also doesn't always go for the most sensible option, so we'll see.
And finally, do you think Harry eats Meghan's concoctions with his meals sprinkled with flowers?
I don't think he could escape it. It's on everything.
Yeah.
Either that or don't eat, I would assume, in Montecito.
Yeah, you can't get away from the sprinkles at the house, but I'm sure he has Greggs sausage rolls couriered to him every week, just in case.
Oh, I would love that if that was true. Yeah.
That would be a great story.
Yeah.
Get onto it.
Sprinkled with flower sprinkles. Right, thanks, guys. Had a lot of fun and went through a lot of serious stuff as well, so really appreciate having you both on. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, well, thanks so much for watching. If you like the show, please leave a comment below because we always read them. And subscribe to the channel so you never miss an episode.